Hello, I'm your host, Veronica Winters. This podcast is available on my YouTube channel at Veronica's Art. You can get it in the audio format on any podcast platform. If you enjoy this show, please rate it. It helps a lot for others to discover this show. And don't forget to visit my website, veronicasart.com, to see new work, get inspired, or maybe you'd like to learn how to draw and paint. You're welcome to take one of my online video classes. So please visit veronicasart.com. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Please enjoy the show. I'm so happy to have you on my show. I'm so excited because you're a fantastic artist, and I'd like for people to know you better, to see your art, and so hopefully you can share your behind the scenes.
Terrific. Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Let's start with the introduction.
I live in Telluride, Colorado for the last 30 years, and I'm a contemporary realist artist. I guess a lot of people could say it falls into photorealism or hyperrealism. I tend to not really go with those labels just because I think I deviate a little bit from both of those. I tend to either sort of add or subtract things from the photographs, or it's important to me to try to maintain the hand of the artist in the text and show a little bit of texture in the paint, which gets very difficult with this high realism because you get tinier little brushes, but I try to incorporate that because I've always loved the paint.
How would you describe your art style? Is it realism, hyperrealism, imaginative realism?
Generally, I say highly realistic.
Highly realistic.
Yeah, and I do work from the photo and different photo references sometimes at the same time. So you could say photorealism. Like I said, I think sometimes I stray from that a little bit. Very little.
Okay. Most of your art is figurative. So what do you find the most interesting about painting the figure? Is there anything in particular you'd like to say with that?
I approach each painting I do in the same way, but there is something for sure about doing the figure, doing portrait, a face, or that there's more of a connection with, and I started with animals, with horses, and even that had that same kind of connection. There's something about that blatant eye-to-eye contact and just the human form that I can connect to on an emotional level, and I believe the viewer can too. So that interests me.
Painting people is very difficult, and if you decide to go for realism, you must be really good at it. And like, I used to avoid painting people because I sucked at it. It took me a very long time to learn the basics. Where did you
suck at it now, Veronica? My gosh.
Thanks. Where did you learn your technique of oil painting?
I just always grew up painting and drawing. My mother was an artist, and so I learned along the way. And in high school, I had a fantastic art teacher, and it was almost like you would step into his classroom and it was like another country. It was so different from a high school class, and he had so much passion and demanded it from us. And I think that's really where I learned all the basics, but also where I really learned to take it seriously. And my love for it was as a teenager. So it was part of my identity growing up that
interesting.
I thought of myself as a painter or as an artist, and just continued on from there. I majored it in college, BFA in studio art. And then, you know, continued to do the occasional workshop and so on. So, you know, I just learned by trial and error and education, and, you know, even now watching Instagram, I still.
Did you learn anything from your mom? What kind of painter was she?
She was at the time a little more abstract, representational, but I remember her when I was very young working in our little boiler room downstairs in the basement. It was like the only space she had. And I would watch her and I would copy and whatever. But she did sort of, I mean, she loved like Mark Rothko. So, but at the same time, she would apply it to more representational work. And then she did more classical kind of stuff. But, you know, she was more of a mom. She didn't take it to a professional level. She did show and things later in life, and she still does it a little bit here and there.
Okay. Like, why didn't she pursue it professionally?
I think she was just pursuing being the mom. You know, I think she always kept it. It was always an interest, and she was a docent, and she was an art teacher, and so she always kept her hand in it. But I think, you know, she just brought up my brother and myself, and that was her main focus.
Because it was common for that period and time for women to stay home.
Yeah, and I think for her, she just wasn't that interested in taking it to a career level or just personal for her.
You also have a large section with your still lifes, which look yummy.
Yeah,
like candy, yeah, donuts. Is there a specific reason why you painted food? Do you still paint food, or it's?
I haven't in a while. It's been mostly figurative, and I did some landscape / floral things for the last show I was in. But that was something that just always appealed to me, even ever since I saw Wayne Thiebaud in high school, and just fell in love with his work. And just thought it was just delicious, and the paint texture and everything was amazing, and I just loved it. But also I grew up, my parents were both very much foodies. So that was kind of our religion. And I always just thought about, you know, the reflective qualities and just how sensual food can be, and how just it's got all of the things for art, right? All the beautiful color and the contrast and all of that. So I thought, well, why not give it a try? And I started a series with donuts, and showed them to Leah Skidmore at Skidmore Contemporary in LA. And she said, after trying to get in there for a few years, and she saw those and she said, that's it. So I had my first solo show with her, and it was called Temptation, Temptation series. So that was a lot of fun.
Did she ask you to continue painting the same theme, or?
Yeah, it sort of went in with a big splash, and she had like some record-breaking sales with my work, which just blew me away because it was my first real. Then it kind of like tapered off. And then she's like, let's come up with something else. So I just sent her another donut. So she still has, you know, a few in there. But yeah, I just started branching off into the figurative. I really felt like I wanted to explore that. For her gallery, figurative wasn't as marketable for her.
Yeah, makes sense. It's often said that it's harder to market figurative art.
Yeah.
But I kind of have to oppose to that, because whenever I go to a museum or a gallery, I'm attracted to the figurative.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As am I, and I feel this pull to paint that as well. I guess I understand for some people, you know, if it's not, when it's that highly realistic, it's not someone they know or a member, maybe it's hard for them to have it hanging in their house. I don't. But some people can see past that and can connect to it on a different level.
I also think sometimes someone's portrait reminds the person of someone else.
Right.
That
Yeah.
could be another
Yeah.
thing.
And that's what I hope. I use my children primarily as my models, and I just feel like, I was so interested in that sort of time in their lives, right? That sort of cusp of adulthood and sort of fighting for autonomy and wanting so much, and that yearning and insecurity and vulnerability and all of that. I just thought that was such an interesting thing to try to capture. And certainly everyone can relate to that, right? We've all been there, or we have children ourselves, and so I hope that there's a connection there when people see that.
What do they think of your art?
My kids.
Yeah.
Ah, that's my proudest moment, when they really are impressed by by what I do, because it's sort of it's emotional for me, and it's a thrill that they can see their mom as doing something separate from them. That's her identity. That's not just mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they love it, and they've been great with being my models, and whether they like it or not, they have to be. So, yeah.
Is it hard for them to pose or no?
No. Well, first of all, my daughter was a theater major.
Ah,
So,
I
and
see.
we're so tight, and she gets me. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they both get what I'm after. Even my son, who, modeling would not be his cup of tea. He knows what I'm after. And if I can move some of these. I don't know if you can see some of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to. There he is again. But yeah, it's hard to see on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they both know the mood that I'm trying to strike, so they're pretty good at posing, and do whatever I ask. Especially my daughter, she'll jump in a freezing mountain lake and wear ridiculous costumes and whatever I need from her. So it's been great.
Do they live with you or?
Well, my son lives in Montana. He's in college out there, and my daughter came back after she graduated college, and she lives in the barn here with me.
Ah,
My
that's
studio's on one
convenient.
side. Yeah.
Wow. You paint quite large. What's the reason behind the canvas size? Do you?
I've just always been attracted to that. I just think it's just a very dynamic effect when people see that, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of a quick cheat, right, Veronica? It makes more of an impact, I think, when it's big.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, when I painted a lot more gestural, in a more gestural way. It was a very physical thing. Now that it's realistic, it's still, bigger
Mm-hmm.
paintings, tiny brushes, all of that. But I still like the effect of seeing it large.
How do you start painting? Do you transfer your image using the squares or?
I started with the gridding, and it made me crazy because
Yeah.
I've always hated math, and I would just go
Mm-hmm.
nuts that I wasn't getting the dimensions of the squares and all of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave up gridding, and I came up with this idea. I mean, I don't know, obviously a lot of people must do this, but I would take the image, and blow it up to the size of the canvas. And then I used carbon paper to transfer the drawing aspect directly onto the canvas.
Yeah, that's what I do. And this process evolved. And I think all hyperrealist artists do exactly the same thing, even if they don't say that they do it.
Right, right. I thought I felt like cheating in the beginning, but I know how to draw. I mean, I'm probably pretty rusty at it now. I don't get a lot of chance to just draw, but I tried to rationalize it that I know how to do it. This saves a lot of time. Such a perfectionist. I want it to be right. You don't want to, like, sometimes you need fresh eyes and you don't see the issues. So to get it on there, just to get the linear part of it on there, and then long enough. So I think it helps. Do you use carbon paper? I thought that was something that I just kind of.
I use I think it's called transfer paper.
Right, transfer paper. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'd heard of people doing the thing where you rub something on.
Oh, I tried that, and it's just too difficult. It's
Yeah,
the
it sounds like
same
a
as,
nap.
yeah, it's the same as doing grading, you know, it just takes so much time.
Right.
I figured that when I want to paint, I want to paint. I don't want to spend 1,000 hours, you know, just drawing it out on canvas, because it messes it up, all those, you know, imperfections that you're trying to fix. And when you start painting, you still need to know how to paint. It's not going to help you if you
Right.
don't know how to draw. So
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so you transfer your image, and then
Yeah.
what do you do?
And then I do a sepia grisaille over that, just to, you know, get everything in place, and so my eye can understand it before I start doing full pigment paint. And I use a medium. What do I use? Walnut alkyd as my medium, and paint, and just do an alla prima. And I work it section by section and try to do wet into wet for the most part, is the way I like to paint. But then I sometimes will do glazes and several layers and as I go. So it's kind of a mix.
But you basically paint in one color first, right?
The grisaille, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get all the values in.
The grisaille usually means painting in black and white, and I'm just
Okay.
trying to understand if you use browns like burnt or
I do
sienna brown.
I do I guess a sepia grisaille. Is that correct?
Okay.
It's
Okay.
imprimatur. I don't know the
Mm-hmm.
terminologies, but yeah. So I use generally a burnt sienna, no, not
Okay.
sienna, burnt umber,
Burnt
and
umber.
gamsel. So it's just a really thin first
And
layer.
no white. You lift out the white.
I'll leave areas that are the brightest whites
Okay.
as the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't ground the canvas or anything. I don't have a
Mm-hmm.
ground color.
I see. And then when it dries, you start painting in color, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it dries very quickly.
So what do you find exciting about painting?
The whole thing. I love you know, the, I'd say the beginning's very exciting because you're just excited to get going on it. And once you have the grisaille down, you can see it's going to be the way you want it. And I think the middle is the worst, right? Because it can look pretty crummy in between layers and you're not there yet. I try to hide my painting sometimes when people just pop in at the wrong time. But, and then, yeah, just, I love the paint texture. I love just getting into it and standing back and that satisfaction of, when it's working. It's great.
Tell me your secrets. How do you make it look so realistic?
Oh God, it's just you know, you
No,
know
I
how it's
don't.
done. Just tedious. It's tedious. I look at I have the photo. I used to just work from my computer screen. I've got a large PC, and I could zoom, really intensely zoom in, and then of course it gets digitized, but that kind of helps with the color because sometimes your brain sees color different than it actually is, I guess. And I understand that the photograph also has some alters color a little bit too, but just zooming in and really just hammering after the detail, I think. And I used to not be interested in the detail. I used to have more of that artist feeling like you don't have to show every hair and every pore and whatnot. But sometimes I really am. I enjoy showing all of it now. I don't know
Okay.
why. It seems like a lot of artists go the other direction. They start tight and get loose, but for some reason, I've just gotten tighter and tighter on it. Not that I need to show every pore, but I just want to. I just really want to get all of the information in, of the figure, at least.
How do you compose your images? Do you compose with your camera first, or you
Um,
don't care how you photograph your models? You
Well, I wish I was a photographer. I got to work on that. I've done some great paintings just from little snapshots that I've taken, but generally, talking about all that detail, I want a really good quality photograph. So I generally hire a photographer.
Oh,
I
wow.
have my idea. I set up the shoot with locations and costumes and the whole, whatever props, whatever I had in mind, and just let it roll, and watch as the photographer takes the shots. And I generally give her a mood board, so to speak, so she knows she's kind of in the same understanding of what I'm going for, because it's kind of intangible. There are certain poses or certain light effect or whatever that I discuss with her as well. But sometimes it's just like, let's just go for it and see what happens. So I start with that, and then generally I crop. I'll find the photo or two out of the bunch that I like, and I crop them. I like to get in close for the most part, and go from there. Yeah.
Well, you have your painting behind you
Yeah.
with the
Svetlana.
we'll talk about that one a little bit
Yeah.
later, but
Okay.
like the one that features your son, I'm
Yeah.
assuming,
Yeah.
in
The sunglasses.
the sunglasses. How did that image come about?
Well, my son was a competitive mogul skier, obsessed with skiing, jumping off cliffs, and all the things that moms really want to hear about. But that was kind of his life. And both my kids growing up in Telluride uh, are so connected and shaped and informed by their environment out here. It's a small town, and it's just surrounded by 11 to 14,000 foot peaks, and I think their souls are very entrenched in the environment and whatnot. That piece I called Freedom, and I think I don't want to say too much so my son doesn't get mad at me, but that teenage age, there was a lot of struggle between him and his father, and searching for autonomy, and um, all of that typical teenage kind of experience. And I had started a series actually with my daughter. I did quite a few with the veil over her face. And it was sort of working with the veil and the sunglasses and lights and things sort of going in front of them. So they're sort of hiding. They haven't quite emerged yet. It's all about that growth process, I guess, and masks and coming into yourself. So he had those cool sunglasses, and I also just love the reflection. That was him. I mean, that's him. He went out with a friend of his. I gave his friend instruction, and Max, my son, knew what I was after, and they were out doing tricks and training and whatnot, skiing, and got that wild and woolly hair thing going. And it just struck me as, freedom. This is what he's after. This is his place. This is where he feels most at home, is out in the mountains. The actual photograph had different mountains in the background, and I used that photograph from a local photographer who does beautiful mountain scenes, and the lighting worked, so I just interposed those together. And that piece actually is going to the moon.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've heard about the Artists on the Moon project.
Tell me about it.
A physicist and sci-fi writer named Sam Peralta started this whole concept. They put this thing together. It's called Lunar Codex, and he's put together people's writings, poetry, and artwork. That I was part of a platform called Poets Artists, and one of my pieces, the first piece to go, it was a different one of my daughter, that he curated the show, and he just started taking paintings that he chose from publications from certain shows under this platform. And now there's about 30,000, I think, pieces of art from different artists that are all
Wow.
digitally going to the moon. So, and for forever, sort of like a what are those time machine boxes or whatever. So it's exciting. I get to tell my kids that they're both going straight to the moon.
Either aliens or future people will discover your art
Exactly.
on the moon.
Exactly. So it's fun. And I guess it's the first time there's been any representation of women artists on the moon. In the 60s, I think there were some pop artists, just a few, that they had left some remnant of artwork up there. But now it's this big project that he's done. So it's exciting to be part of.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
I really like this painting because of the light.
Mhm.
It feels so fresh and crisp, like I am in the mountains.
Right, great.
So it's amazing that you brought that feel into the painting.
Well, thank you. That's what I was going for. And yeah, that's definitely the feeling out here, especially right now. It's freezing. But yeah,
Yeah, and the sunlight. I mean, it's just exactly that kind of sunlight.
yeah.
And it's so
Intense.
well painted, and it
Oh,
has
thank you.
unusual composition. So all of that, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, my son helped me out with that because he's like, okay, we got to wear this jacket because you're so good at getting reflection, and it's the little down jackets with all the little quilting. So that was really fun to paint, and the glasses, of course, and his hair with the light.
Hmm.
So they're little challenges, but it's a lot of fun.
Do you plan on doing more of these kind of paintings, or it's you're done with that kind of painting and
Oh,
you
I would love to continue that for sure.
okay.
I have a show I had a show in Santa Fe. It's still there. Where I continued with like the background of that with the mountains, and I took out the figurative just for a little bit, and instead um, put florals in the front, in the foreground.
That
So
was
it's
my next question about
yeah.
your
So I did.
floralscapes.
Yeah, I did a series of floralscapes because we had just moved out here. We've been here for 30 years, but we moved out to this property with a lot of open acreage and incredible views. And I was kept trying to think, how can I express this? Because I've never really wanted to do landscapes. I did them when I was
Hmm.
younger, but I was kind of bored with them. And I know people can do
Hmm.
them beautifully, but it was never my thing. And I always thought, how can you possibly copy nature to
Hmm.
that degree? And do it justice. I wanted to put the two together to kind of show the timelessness of these mountains, and then the fragility of life with cut flowers that are going to be gone in a week, and just kind of
Hmm.
put them together. So I did that series, which was nice. But again, I
Yeah,
crave the figurative, I think.
I think your floralscapes are very unique to you. And again, I can almost smell that cool, crisp air
Yeah.
just by looking at
Oh,
them.
thank you. Well, that's great.
Well, you kind of told me how you came up with the idea, but if you can expand on that, how did you decide to put flowers in front of the mountains?
Um, I was thinking about all these different ideas. I was like, my
Why
God,
not donuts?
that would have been cool. And maybe that's next on the line, Veronica. You just gave me an idea. Um, I think flowers flowers are used for to celebrate life, right? They're
Mhm.
used for so many things in memorial, just yeah, in celebration. And I just thought it was a way to sort of honor this incredible beauty by putting them together. And then florals are so incredibly beautiful. And I thought, I just thought there's something about the contrast, even though they're very complementary. I thought there was kind of a contrast between domestic cut florals and the beauty of the natural landscape. And and the way they play against each other with the color and the movement and stability. I'm always into contrast in the juxtaposition of them. The narrative kind of came to be more when I was painting, because you spend so much time just looking at things. And it was sort of just about the frailty, the strength of the mountains and the fragility of the flowers, and how that is a metaphor for life, and how, it's timeless, yet it's not. It's fleeting. We're only here for a moment, and just to be grateful and appreciative of our surroundings, our environment, our relationships, everything, because it's here and it's beautiful, and then it's gone, right? So
I think these are the most unique paintings that you've created. I understand the boredom with the landscapes. I'm kind of the same way, and I used to do some landscapes, but it's been so many artists doing just that. So you have to come up with a different point of view or theme. And I think Floralscapes are so darn unique.
Oh, well, great. Thank you.
Would you like to talk about the painting that you are sitting next to?
Yeah, sure. This is an exciting thing that I've just begun. She's a work in progress, and I got the opportunity to work with an incredible international photographer and activist, Mark Neville. And he is in Ukraine right now, photographing Ukrainians. And I'm able to collaborate with him by using, he's granted me permission to use his photographs, which is really exciting for me, because they speak to me and they're incredible. So this piece, this is Svetlana, and it's a cropped version of a photograph that he took called Reza. There's another woman, Reza and Svetlana, on the beach in Odessa, Arcadia Beach in Odessa, and it was taken in 2017. This piece actually had a personal note for me. My grandmother immigrated, my Jewish grandmother immigrated from Odessa when she was very young. And she used to speak of the beaches out there and everything. So it's an ironic thing that this is the first piece that I'm starting on. But this came from a book that he did called Stop Tanks with Books. And it was to support Ukraine, and a kind of a call to action before the war started. Saw it coming, as did many people. And so I'm just working on her. She's fabulous. And hope to continue doing a series, and everything's going to go towards his charity, which is called Postcode Ukraine. And that started, it's sort of a hybrid humanitarian aid and photography project. So all the 100% of the donations go to people in Ukraine that need the help, because there's no overhead. It was started from a collector of his, but it's just to combat compassion fatigue from the situation out there. And it's just important that for him that we know that there's Ukrainians still risking their lives out there for democracy, and that we should support them.
Do you plan to create the entire series and then donate the series?
Yeah, at this point, I'm just going painting by painting, and I guess hopefully the idea is that it could culminate in a show, sort of a mixed media show with his work and my work from his references. And
okay.
But yeah. So it's exciting. It's really, I feel so fortunate to be able to imagery and to have this opportunity to help as well.
How did you meet him?
And I haven't met him. He is in Ukraine. I've had some emails back and forth.
Ah,
A talented editor friend of mine sort of put us in touch. He had seen my show in Santa Fe of the Floralscapes and wanted
mm-hmm.
to had this idea. So it's all him.
Wow, cool.
He sort of put us together. So, but Mark is a terrific guy. He's doing amazing work and
Mm-hmm.
just fortunate to be part of it, I think.
Do you go to Santa Fe often?
No, I hadn't been there in years, and I had been with this gallery for a couple of years, and so that was my first time when I came out with the show.
Yeah, it's a very nice place, a tiny town. I
Yeah,
think it's the only street which is, the Canyon Road that
yeah.
holds
Well,
so many galleries.
oh, so many. Yeah, and
Uh,
this isn't even on Canyon Road. This is now I'm forgetting the name of the road, but sort of the core center of the little
mm,
city there.
I
But yeah,
see.
it's a very artsy town.
Yeah, it's amazing how it developed like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you share who or what inspires you to create?
Everything, everybody. you know, yeah, I never stop thinking about it. I don't know about you, but it stays with me. Whatever I'm looking at, I kind of, I see the color or the contrast, or oh, that would be a cool painting, or that. And of course, my children, and I'm always thinking about it. So I'm inspired by everything. I'm inspired by photography, by fashion, by other artists for sure, constantly scrolling through Instagram. And when I get a chance to go to a gallery or a museum, just eat it up. So always thinking.
What's your favorite museum? Do you have one?
Oh gosh, I always loved the Met. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been to New York in quite a while, but yeah, I live in a pretty isolated area for that. Although it's a big arts community, there are, you know, I don't have access to a whole lot of that. But whenever I get a chance, when I'm in a big city, to go somewhere.
How do you market your work? How do you put it out there?
Um, well, aside from galleries, I try to, do the Instagram thing, and I've got a website and Facebook and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't have that many followers. I'm not that entrenched in it. I do love making reels and making posts and being able to write something about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is incredibly time consuming, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very tech savvy, so it can be really frustrating. So I haven't gone really deep, but I do love to do it. I love the creative aspect of posting and reel and that kind of thing, and I love the feedback because being an artist can be very isolating. So it's
Mm-hmm.
nice to hear nice things and get people's responses.
My son calls me a boomer.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Yes, I'm also not that great, but I like Instagram because it looks like a portfolio.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a website, you have a very clear representation of your art if you are good at managing
Right,
Instagram.
absolutely. I love it too. And it's even on a personal level, it's sort of a historical part of your life, right? It's always
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yes.
I love that about it.
Yeah, like a photo album.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I also like to discover new art there. In fact, it's so varied, so interesting that I ditched all my art magazines. I'm not subscribed to anything anymore
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because I just go to Instagram
Oh,
to get
it's
inspired.
endless. Yeah.
Yeah, Pinterest is the same way. It's like you open it and oh my God.
Right, right. I know. It can get a little overwhelming. It's sort of a big black hole, but at the same time I love it, and it's so inspiring to see other people's work and what they're doing, and there's a bit of a community there too as well,
Hmm.
It's which is nice.
Do you find artists being supportive or no?
Um what I've found is definitely yeah, and it's kind of a less socially taxing way to have that kind of support. It's to just having that social media connection to people. It
Mm-hmm.
feels good, and I found all the artists to be supportive, and it's almost like a little friendship, even though it's on social media. It's not real, but you do feel you get good feedback, and it's
Mm-hmm.
nice to have this group of artists that support each other, and it's not like a competitive kind of thing. It doesn't feel that way, so that's nice.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, have you had that an experience the other
Um,
way, or?
yeah, my experience is mixed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are supportive on the surface, but if
Well,
you dig deeper, they're
right.
not.
Well, maybe I'm not digging intentionally. That's what I mean. It's surface, and it's nice. I haven't, living out here, all I do is paint, basically. So I'm not interacting with artists really,
Hmm.
more than social media for the most part, once in a while. But
But I think if you find that special person, that person is really special. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
because a lot of times it's it can be disappointing,
yeah. No,
to
I
be
get
honest.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So far so good. It's been a good experience with just over social media, and having
Hmm.
there's been some really nice women and men, and very, very supportive group of people from that I've met through Poets Artists.
Hmm. You have a section of your website that's called Wearable Art. Can you share what it is? How do you make it? How do you make it wearable?
Well, I pick the dress and go from there. And so it's it started when I was on the board of it's called the AHA School out here. It's our arts community arts school, and I started with an idea of painting masterwork on a dress, and then I would walk down the catwalk with it, and they could sell the dress for a fundraiser.
So
And
is it actual painting or
yeah,
printing of?
it's
Oh, so
actual painting on the fabric.
oh wow. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're using acrylics to do that.
Yes. I haven't done it with oil paint yet. I was just a little nervous that it kind of bleeds a little.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
don't
tried
think
it.
you
I
can.
know it's really tricky, but then I did it. Uh, I don't know. I must have done like 5 or 6 dresses, and probably more than that actually, for different fundraisers, and did one for my mother-in-law, and but so I always used acrylic, and then the last one I did for myself for my last show in Santa Fe. Um, and I found it so hard working in the acrylic because it had been a long time. And I've been working in oil, and it just dries so fast. And
Hmm.
it just feels not as luscious. You have to
Hmm.
move quickly and get through it. But yeah, it's harder than working on canvas for sure, because
Hmm.
you can't. It's not fastened down to stretcher bars or anything like that. You just kind of. I make like a template out of cardboard and put the dress on it, and then as I paint, it kind of sticks to the cardboard,
Uh-huh.
just enough so that when you lift it, it will come free. But that kind of cements it down, so it's easier to. It's not constantly moving.
Do you buy a dress, like a ready-made dress, and then
Yeah,
paint
yeah,
on it?
yeah.
Oh,
Generally,
okay.
the first few I had dresses already that I added to, and I used a lot of different media. I used acrylic, but I also sewed on or stuck on Swarovski crystals,
Mm-hmm.
and of all these different varying shapes. One that I loved, I did a Gustav Klimt, and
Mm-hmm.
the Swarovski crystals actually, I found them to come in the same shapes as on the Klimt. So that was fantastic. I loved that one. But yeah, Yeah, so I'm copying master uh, paintings of different artists and then put them on.
Do you plan to do more, or it's just a one-time project?
I'm always game to do it. I think it's so fun, and I thought it would be a really exciting thing to do for people for wedding dresses. I haven't done that yet. That would be a little scary because you know how expensive dresses are and how important they are to people, but I haven't messed up yet. So, that might be a really exciting thing to do. And I love doing the idea of doing them for myself for openings.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Usually artists print their art on fabric, but
Yeah. I've seen
you,
that. I don't know how to do that. That would be better in terms of getting it dry cleaned for sure. But yeah, I have seen that done also. It's beautiful.
they look amazing, so realistic. And yeah. So, can people buy them from you, or it's
Yeah, sure. And people did. The first few went for fundraisers. I'm open to doing them. Haven't totally figured out. I did have mine dry cleaned and it was okay. It's just that it's a little, haven't figured out how to do that so that they're really in good shape, after wearing. They're almost like a one-shot deal. That's why I think wedding dresses would be the best approach. Or
yeah,
maybe somebody wants me to do one for the Academy Awards or something.
maybe Rihanna or
There you go. That'd be good.
So what's your next project, do you know?
Well, I'm still just, working with Mark Neville, I think is going to be for a while, working on different. I'm really excited about some of his photographs of children that I'd like to work on for that. And
What's your biggest success?
successes. Well, I try not to focus too much on that because I have a joke with my family. I said, okay, famous by 50, successful by 60, and satisfied by 70s. That's trying to live by that. I haven't hit famous, but I did hit some goals by 50, so I was happy about that. And getting my first solo show, like I was talking about at Skidmore Contemporary, which was a gallery that I very established that I loved, and having pieces in museum shows was very exciting for me. Everything, being accepted into shows or getting into magazine articles, all of these things are just stepping stones, the way I see them, and haven't had my biggest success yet. How about that? Keep working at it. But
How do you get into museum shows?
I just apply to do submissions to juried shows and things like that. And I've been in a few shows at the Waimoka in Wausau, Wisconsin. So that's mainly.
Okay.
But yeah, I just keep submitting to shows, and I try not to get caught up in, the failure, the rejections. I think that's what always appealed to me growing up with art, is that just the subjectiveness of it all. There's no right or wrong, it's just if you didn't get into something, they were looking for something different, and I try to move on from the disappointment of that and just keep at it.
I think it's always disappointing because you want to get it. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to get it, you don't apply in the first place.
Right. Well, you try to gauge what works for your style of painting, or what your contemporaries that do get into this show, that if you look up to them and you feel like you're edging towards that level, at least, that I try to pick shows that work for me in the first place. Then your odds are a little better than getting a lot of rejections. And then just work up as you go. Keep trying at it. And then if you don't get in, you can always say, they don't know what they were thinking. They got it all wrong. They're lost.
Oh my God. What do you want to say with your art?
I've always sort of gone after it more from a visual standpoint and an emotional point of view. So I don't really have like a hard and fast statement with my art. For me, I think it's to evoke an emotional response in myself and the viewer, and it can be different to everyone, but just to have some kind of emotional feeling to it, to have some kind of connection for someone. Then I feel like even if it's just a momentary connection for someone, and they feel something, it's intangible, but if it takes them out of their head and their day for just a split moment, I think I'm on the right path. I feel like I've grabbed somebody in some way. And I know that's kind of it doesn't really define it, but
Yeah, your response is your response.
right, right.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to ever demand a political statement or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's just emotion.
Do you want to give advice to younger artists, like where to start or how to become an artist?
Oh gosh. I felt like I got out of school and didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I would just like start stamping down the sidewalk with my portfolio. I was so naive, and I'm really not that secure or confident of a person, but for some reason I just went for it and just started banging down doors and kept at it. And I felt like I never really had the tools or the instruction of how to like approach galleries or any of that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But and certainly, look, it's a long road. I'm in my 50s and I'm just now really getting into it. Um, I always had my hand in it some little way, but I think you just have to really, if that's what you want, you have to take it seriously. You have to treat it like a job. Paint as much as you possibly can. Stay after it. Open yourself up to things if people ask you to use your work or to donate your work, to the amount that you can, say yes. Put yourself out there and just, treat it like a job and not a hobby, take it
Hmm.
seriously and do it. And
Hmm.
little by little you can make contacts or make inroads now with online. Makes it so much easier to find things and to submit to things and all of that. So, just go for it.
I'm gathering what you said. You basically started approaching galleries just by knocking on the doors.
Yeah, which is totally the wrong thing to do, right? But I was young and dumb.
So
But
no, no,
I did
no,
other
wait,
things
wait.
too. Like
Oh,
I
oh.
would go into retail stores and it would create and ask them if they needed anyone to do ads, or I didn't really know what I was doing, to tell you the truth, when in my 20s, but I just anything I could try to do with art and beyond, commercial stuff,
Mhm.
beyond trying to just get into galleries and whatnot. Um,
Did anything come out of it? Like, did you get any jobs? Like, did you?
yeah, I got some weird little jobs that barely paid, but at that age, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, okay, I'm doing it,
Mhm.
and then I worked for an architect drawing blades of grass, and that in his style, because he would sign off on it, and nobody knew the person doing the trees, leaves, and the grass, but that's what he needed somebody to do. And I did all sorts of weird little things, and worked in a gallery, and um, t-shirts, and whatever I could get my hands on, and always trying to, and then building up a series of my own on my own time. And then I think I had my first show was at Rose Cafe in Venice Beach in California. Um, and it just felt good to like do a show and get reactions. And just builds, things build,
Mhm.
and people see things, and goes from there little by little. Still building. I'm still trying. Yeah.
It's good to know because I think there is no single path. So it's interesting to learn about every artist's road, so to speak.
Yeah. But I had crazy experiences down the line too with galleries, a gallery that shut down and never called me and had my art, so to go pick it up from a gallery that, I lost touch with the owner, and there's been all sorts of crazy stories along the lines. But then, as time went on, get into established and good galleries, and then you can, from there, it's easier to move on and find other galleries, or they find you. So I haven't been able to, the whole, like you said, the social media thing. I know a lot of artists manage to bypass the whole gallery system and sell for themselves. I don't know if you do that as well, which is great, but I haven't quite figured that one out myself.
Well, can you give advice to artists how to approach the gallery the right way?
I've had, I've had a mix. I've had galleries that come to me, and I've had galleries that I've approached. Um, the gallery in LA, that was crazy because I went with my father-in-law, and he's a very boisterous, extroverted guy, and he comes from an art family as well in South Africa. And I walked down to the gallery. We were walking through Bergamot Station, where it's sort of an urban little area. You go from gallery to gallery to gallery. And I walked down of Skidmore, and I said to him, I would give my right arm to get into that gallery. I've been looking at it for years, online and everything. And he said, come along, Nicolai, we're going in. We're going to talk to the gallery owner. I was like, no, you can't do that. That's a big no-no. And he went in all boisterous and started talking up Leah. And, she was very kind and tolerant. And she looked at some of my stuff on the website and, was very sweet and kind of, told me which paintings she kind of liked. And I walked down to there, sort of humiliated, and but I stayed in touch with her, and I kept showing her new work, and she would say, "Okay, that's lovely," and she was very supportive. But she's like, "No, I'm not interested, not interested." And like I said, then I showed her the series of donuts, and she said, "Let's do this." So it took years, but and we did the wrong thing. We walked in there and was like, my father-in-law, this is my artist daughter-in-law, and this, normally that's a big turnoff for curators, gallerists, but it over time it worked. It was nice to make that connection with her.
So what's the right way?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? So you try to submit online, and I think that doesn't seem to work very well, right? That's a tough one. I guess you could go in and ask them what their process is and introduce yourself, and ask them when there is a time or a place that you could present your work. I'm not sure. I just collected the few galleries that I've got going now and going from there. It's nice when they come to you, right? That's the most ideal way, but as starting out as an artist, it's tough.
I think the gallery can come to you if you're visible.
Right.
And I think for most artists, it's difficult to be visible because there are so many things.
Yeah.
There are so many artists.
Right. I think that probably helps, like I said, to submit to shows. Maybe you get in a magazine or from a show or something like that, and then your visibility sort of builds. And of course, having an Instagram account or a website.
I think young artists need to work on their visibility, doing it constantly, as opposed to a one-time thing. Yeah. And I think also applying to residencies, if you can do so. Like when I began painting, I didn't because I had a small child, so it wasn't like possible.
Right.
But looking back, I think it's a very good opportunity to meet curators, and if you get selected, and
Yeah.
just be in the community, and that's something that's overlooked, but it can be a very interesting opportunity. Of course, it depends on the residency, but
Right.
and the world is getting global, and there is internet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
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 All right. I appreciate your time. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Um,
Wasn't nearly as scary as I thought, Veronica. You made it easy.
but I do appreciate the time and willingness to
Oh,
participate.
of course. Thank you so much. That was fun, and I
Yeah.
honored that you asked. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Take
Yay.
care. Thanks so much for watching. All the links are in the show notes. Take care. Bye bye.